Hey there, everyone. My name is Yusef, if you don't already know me. I hope you guys can see me. I don't like doing stuff like this unless you guys can see me because I'm going to be the only one talking. So I'd rather you guys put a face to my voice than just, uh, listen to my voice. But I think Discord will cap out at some point if we get too many people and turn off my camera, which is fine. Either way, I'm really excited to do this workshop. I spent a good amount of time this week prepping for it and making sure everything works. So hopefully, there's a lot of moving parts to it, and you'll see once we continue what it is that why it might not work. But hopefully it will, and hopefully we'll have a good time. I'll try to finish up by 9. But I'll also stay until 10 because that would be a lot of time if anyone has any questions. And yeah, so let's get started. Cool. If I just pause for no reason, that's because I'm pushed to talk and yeah, so it's fine. So the agenda. I'll start with talking about a little bit about me. Then we'll dive into like actual workshop material. And so we'll talk about what threat hunting is. And since I work at Bell, we'll talk about what threat hunting is at Bell specifically. And then we'll dive into like a practical example about how we would threat hunt for DLL hijacks. And then we'll go over some notes and then a question and answer, and yeah, and then that'll be it. Should be fun. Also, just ignore everything at the bottom here. The date is horribly wrong, and this is not confidential. If it was, I wouldn't be giving it. But you'll see that on some slides. I just couldn't get rid of it because of the PowerPoint format thing. Cool. So who am I? Well, I'm Yusef. That is me right there in 2 pictures. I'm at the bottom left in the first picture over here, and then that's me in the bottom. Just so you can put an even better face. This was me before I put on 20 pounds during COVID of pure muscle. I mean fat, but no one really cares. I'm a 4th year at Sheridan. So I just finished my co-op about 2-3 months ago. And I'm working part-time at I work part-time, so I did my co-op on the threat hunting team, and now I'm also working part-time on the threat hunting team as well. Sorry, just give me 1 second. I want to try and put like a little delay on the push to talk thing. Cool. That way now when I press the button, you guys will still hear me. Okay. Also, actually, I'll talk about that later. Yeah. So working part-time at Bell right now. Finished my 8-month co-op term there. It was really good. And I'm happy that they brought me back to work part-time. Other than the fact that I'm super busy, it's been great. But yeah, I am a very proud Palestinian. I come from Palestine. I was born in Jordan. I lived in Palestine for 5 years when I was born. I went back once in 2012, and I will hopefully go back once I graduate, if I graduate. Some of my hobbies include coding. I'm a big programmer. I really like coding. Sadly, this workshop has nothing to do with coding, but we'll talk about that because you can always automate stuff. I like to play volleyball and soccer, and I also recently, at the beginning of COVID, I'd say, started a hobby doing debkin. And what that is, it's Palestinian Arab, I'd say, cultural dancing. And this over here, this picture at the top is my debkin troupe. We're a cool bunch of guys, and I can send you guys videos later if anyone's interested in seeing me dance. Okay, cool. What else? Yes, I am a teacher at My Code Club. My Code Club is a non-for-profit organization that me and my family started a while back. So I teach coding there, and that's why I like coding so much. And I also love teaching. So anytime I get the opportunity to do a workshop like this, I'm all for it. Yeah, that's basically about me. It was a delay. It's fine. It's still not working, Nash, but it's okay. So what is threat hunting? Before I give you the answer, I'd like to see what you guys think threat hunting is. So if anyone knows what threat hunting is, please do not answer. I want to hear from those people who um, uh, don't know what threat hunting is, what it just sounds like. Sounds very cool. Yes, it is very cool. Not sure why I basically gave these. Well, yeah, it still doesn't work, Nash, but it's okay. Yeah, it's fine. Not a problem. Okay, so back to what we were talking about. It's okay. Don't worry about it, Nash. Back to what we were talking about. What is threat hunting? Um, I saw, sounds very cool, looking for 0 days. Oh, right, share my screen. Forgot. There we go. Get the technology great. Um, yeah, let's get a couple more answers, if possible. Also, please feel free to unmute yourselves. Um, I am all for people unmuting themselves, so don't be shy. I am all for it. I'd love to hear other people's voice than myself. Looking for weird logs. Interesting. Okay, cool. Good answers. Um, I think it's a combination of all those things, and honestly, but here's a definition that I have from CrowdStrike. So threat hunting is the practice of proactively searching for cyber threats or TTPs that are lurking undetected in a network. Cyber threat hunting digs deep to find malicious actors in your environment that have slipped past your initial endpoint defenses, security defenses rather. Okay. Now that might be wordful, so I'm gonna break it down. So, the number one thing that threat hunting contains is you're assuming that your adversaries are already within your network or system. And why that is basically because as threat hunting, a lot of what you're doing is proactive and not reactive. And what that means by is you're not sitting looking for alerts to raise based on some detections that you've built. You are assuming that there are bad people doing bad things in your network and you are looking for them. And that's just gist of it. Okay, that's putting it like really, really simply. It breaks down into a couple things and you'll see what those things are as we move forward. Threat hunters are tier 3 analysts, and I'll get into what that means in a second. But I'm pretty sure most of you already know what that means. If you've taken, I don't know, if you're at Sheridan at least, then you've taken one of the intro to security courses on like first year. Pretty sure we talked about the tiers then. As threat hunters, it is very, very important to stay current with the latest threats and vulnerabilities, TTPs and APTs. I know you guys probably maybe don't know what TTPs and APTs are, but we will talk about that later as well. A lot of your work is research driven, so it's really, really important that you like to read, you like to Google, you like to learn, because a lot of what threat hunting contains is a lot of learning, and not necessarily stuff that you'll just learn in school. It's a lot of learning on your own and just being heavily engaged in what you are learning and what you're doing. Some of the skills that are needed, and all of this is stuff that I am giving you guys because I think we'll end up looking for new threat hunters soon at Bell because a lot of people are leaving. Um, and so I would maybe take note because if you wanted to apply, a lot of the interviewers will be looking for these kinds of answers. So some of the skills that you'll need, programming, not a must, but something that's nice to have. Data analytics, pattern recognition, a good understanding of Mitre Att&ck, communication, understanding many systems, just having a variety of tools that you can use is always good. The ability to learn quickly a lot and knows a little bit about everything. And I have this last little quote here that I like that I think kind of puts into perspective what it is that threat hunting uh, means. So you've probably all heard this before. A jack of all security trades is a master of none, but oftentimes a but oftentimes better than a master of one. And I don't mean to offend anyone by saying this. Being a master of one thing is great, but I just think that uh, having a skill set that is really, really broad and just like a decent amount of like everything is really important, and it's definitely important for threat hunting. And one thing that I wanted to note here is I know a lot of you might be in school right now, and I'm still in school too, and it's hard to kind of pick out exactly what you want. Um, there's very, very few people that I think know exactly what kind of job they want in security um, coming out of school. And I think threat hunting is really, really good for that because, especially in our program, you gain a lot of these really cool skills and knowledge, and it's a little bit of everything. You got some programming, you got some networks, you got a little bit of software, secure software. Uh, there's a lot that you learn, and it's not really targeted to one specific thing. And threat hunting really does require knowledge in everything security. So yeah, does threat hunting have a high burnout rate? Let me see. I wouldn't say it does. I'm not too knowledgeable to really speak about that. Um, I think that the work in security in general is really tiring and can prove to can lead to burnout. But I think that's something that is in almost like every single security related field. So I wouldn't pinpoint just threat hunting. Cool. So I mentioned the tiers. The SOC, the threat hunting is you're a tier 3 analyst. So let's just break down what those tiers are to get a better understanding of where threat hunting falls. Also, Kurt, I see that you're here. I hope you're proud of my PowerPoint because it's very inspired by you. Okay, so tier 1. Tier 1 analysts are people that triage and investigate alerts. They try and find the true positives and also sometimes go into high-speed remediation. Okay, and so what that means is basically when you're working in a SOC, you usually have some sort of SIM or SIEM, however it's pronounced, and that SIEM produces alerts, and some of them are true positives and some of them are false positives. And so, as a tier 1 analyst, your job is to find the true positives. And if it's something that's quick and you can fix easily, you do that. But if it's something a little more complicated, or not complicated, but rather isn't just a high speed fix, you would hand that off to tier 2. Now, tier 2 analysts they address the real security incidents identified by tier 1, and they call tier 3 for help for critical incidents. They also monitor the high value assets. So every organization has high value assets. These can be like domain controllers, servers that are web servers that are running, important websites. And so the tier 2 analysts usually get involved in those kinds of incidents. And then lastly, tier 3 are more experienced than tier 2, and they deal with like super critical incidents and perform assessments on organization security posture. And what that means is tier 3 can involve a whole bunch of teams. Um, Threat hunting falls within that tier 3 category in most SOCs. Doesn't necessarily, threat hunting can be actually a separate part of all these tiers and not even any in part of any tier. But usually they would fall into tier 3 because they are usually the people who are more experienced in dealing with, finding bad things in logs because that's what they're doing every single day. And they're usually very knowledgeable on how to pick pick out different things to use to fix a certain security flaw or vulnerability. I mean, that was just a quote that I said, Tasdeed. I just think that it's really cool to, be able and be knowledgeable in a bunch of different things, especially starting off in your career. But yeah, I would agree that as you move on in your career, you probably want to specialize a little bit more because being all over the place also isn't good. So I think it's a balance. Also, feel free to ask questions at any point in time. I love questions. I also, if I say something that is incorrect or you think is incorrect, please point it out. I don't think that I know everything, and I definitely don't know everything. So I always want to learn more. So if anyone has anything to say, please add. Okay, so the threat hunting process. So, and you'll see this as we go into our practical example in a little bit. But what the threat hunting process consists of is three things: a trigger. I'm actually just going to go through all of these and then explain them. So a trigger, the investigation stage, and then the resolution phase. So talking about the trigger, a trigger is something that begins the hunt. So like I said, as threat hunters, your mindset is attacker is in, and we need to find something. But attackers can do a whole variety of different things, right? There's a bunch of different tools out there that can help attackers do different things and establish different mechanisms. And so you don't necessarily have a starting point. But what you do have is a trigger. And that could be a tweet or a blog post about a new attack or a new TTP. I know I'm throwing the word TTP a lot, but I'll get into what that is in a little bit. Just think of it as another attack if you don't know what it is. But yeah, so a simple tweet on Twitter or a blog post that you see can inspire you to hunt for something. So, for example, and we'll see today when I dive into the practical example that a blog post on DLL hijacks, you might read that and you'd be like, that's interesting. I wonder if anyone's been doing that in our environment. And so you go out and you go looking for that. And so that leads into the next phase, which is the investigation. Um, so now you're looking for the attack in the logs. So most organizations, um, they would have a SIM or a SIEM or some sort of EDR that brings forth all the logs in the environment, or at least high majority of them. And that way you can search through different machines and be like, okay, I see this happening here, I see that happening there. And yeah, and so that's what you're doing. However, that could include launching the attack yourself in a lab environment to see the logs it generates, right? So if you don't know what you're looking for, so you can say, hey, I'm looking for a DLL hijack, but what the heck does that look like in the logs? Well, you need to find that out. And what's the best way of doing that? Doing it yourself, right? And so the best way to figure out what it is you're looking for is to launch the attack yourself. And this is where I go back to my saying about being knowledgeable in a bunch of things. So here, if you're like, hey, I like red teaming, well, I mean, you will be doing a little bit of red teaming and threat hunting because you're launching attacks not necessarily in a real environment or a penetration test type thing, but yeah. So you launch the attack, you see the logs it generates, and then you go looking for them in your actual environment. And then the resolution phase. So the resolution, either you wind up with two results. Either you find something bad happening, or you didn't find anything bad happening. And so if you find something bad happening, great. You alert your CERT team, you push the red button, all that good stuff, and you follow through with whatever happened there. Second case is you didn't find anything. And so you may think, oh, well, okay, we're done. Our job here is over. But no, you want to be able to create detections to prevent that attack that you just carried out from happening in the future. So whether that be creating a rule of some sort in your SIEM that triggers whenever it sees that sort of activity, doesn't really matter so long as you are creating something that will prevent this from happening, or if not prevent, at least be able to catch it when it does happen. So I'll pause here. Does anyone have any questions on any of these three phases? Cool. I'll take that as enough. Awesome. So I've mentioned Mitre Att&ck and TTPs a couple of times. So let's talk about that because this is a really important part of what you use as threat hunters, and rather just any SOC role in general. The Mitre Att&ck Framework is something that's a lot of organizations use, and it's something that you should definitely be knowledgeable in going into any sort of interview. So what is Mitre Att&ck? Mitre Att&ck is a framework for mapping out attackers based on real-world observations, and I'm going to show you what it looks like in just a second. But basically, it's just this big map that breaks down the stages of what an attack is, all the way from recon to impact, and it basically breaks down different types of attacks that an attacker might do. TTP stands for tactics, techniques, and procedures. And I'll show you what each of those individual things means in a little bit. So when I say a new TTP, or we're investigating a new TTP, you're basically investigating some form of tactic, technique, or procedure that is not new really released, but rather something that hasn't been done before, and it's now coming to light. What's really cool about Mitre is it also brings forth common APTs, and what those are is advanced persistent threats. You could just think of them as attackers. So it'll basically say, oh, these group of attackers are known for doing this kind of behavior and this kind of behavior and this kind of behavior. And that way, if you see something that is unique to that APT, you kind of know what group is targeting your organization, and thus you can assume there are other TCPs in your environment that hacker group has done. And again, I'm going to show you all these things right now. Most organizations use Mitre to organize security operations and identification. What that means is basically you'll see that rules or different kinds of things are organized based on these Mitre categories. And so rather than continuing to talk about it more, let's actually go check it out. I forgot that I have to push to talk. As I said, Mitre is like this basically big matrix that has a bunch of different things. So let's kind of break this down. First of all, can you guys see my screen clearly enough, or should I zoom in?
We can see you.
Okay, awesome, cool. So basically, what this breaks down to is at the top here, you have these tactics. So these are your tactics. Again, it goes from recon all the way to impact. And basically, these are just different stages of what an attacker would do in attack. So first of all, they would obviously go through and try and scan the network, see what it is that they're doing, and that's what reconnaissance is. I'll skip through a couple of these. Once they figure out what it is they want to do, they're going to pinpoint an initial access point, right? So whether that be a phishing campaign, exploiting a vulnerable web server, they're going to do some sort of initial access technique to gain initial access. Then they'll probably go through, and establish persistence, because, hey, they might get caught, but if they can figure out a way to re join the network in some sort of way, they're going to do that. And then there's a couple other things that I'm not going to dive into all of them, but they're there for you to see. So these are the tactics. These things underneath them are the techniques. Okay. And so, for example, if I dive into just one of these, and I'm going to dive into the one that we're going to be doing, hijack execution flow, what you'll see is a little page on what hijack execution flow. Now, this is a technique. It also has a bunch of different sub techniques. So this in itself is not sufficient. This probably breaks down into a couple different things, and you'll see why that is in just a second. So the one specific one that we're going to be doing is DLL search order hijacking. So if I click on that, it brings me up a nice little page about what DLL search order hijacking is. So it gives you a nice description. It tells you what tactics it's a part of. So this is a persistence technique tactic. It's also a privilege escalation tactic, and it's also a form of defense evasion. And I'll show you why it's all three of those things once we dive into the example. And then it has your procedure examples. So it'll say basically that APT41, so this hacker group, has used DLL search order hijacking to execute malicious payloads such as Mitre Att. So there's an example for you to go and search about how to do DLL hijacking, right? Or DLL search order hijacking. And so it gives you a bunch of these examples of different people. Obviously, they're not in depth and tell you all the steps, but it'll give you a good summary for you to kind of go out and do some more Googling. So yeah, this is what I mean by it's like really, really in depth, and it's really, really helpful as a SOC analyst to have this in your toolkit and to know at the bare minimum what the different categories or tactics there are. And so yeah, so you can see that there's a whole bunch. So almost everything an attacker can do, you'll find here. There's very few things I think that aren't here, and eventually they will get added because this is something that gets updated quite frequently. Okay, so anything that has any of these little arrows means it's got some sub techniques, and yeah. So any questions on that? Has anyone seen this before? Actually looked at it? Awesome.
Sorry, I had a quick question if you don't mind.
Go for it.
So when you say you use the Mitre Att&ck Framework, is it just as a reference like after an attack happens, or like how else do you use it in terms of your job?
Right. So great question. Um, the Mitre Att&ck Framework is a really good pinpoint to start. So for example, without trying to say too much here, we at Bell will take this and we'll basically say, okay, we have detections for, say, let's say phishing. We have detections for, whatever, however many of these. But then we can also say, we can also see based on, our own map where our gaps are. So we can see that, for example, hey, we don't have anything for hide artifacts or impaired defenses. We don't have any detections or any defenses on this. So now I can go to impaired defenses and look into that. And as a threat hunter, I can go and try and find any procedures or any way someone impaired a defense system to try and build a detection for that. So it's really good reference point to begin hunts and organize your security posture in an organization, if that makes sense.
Got it. Thank you.
No problem. Yeah, there's a ton of information here. It's actually fantastic, and it's like Mitre puts this out for free. But honestly, if they didn't want to, they could charge a shit ton of money for this, and they'd get it because it's really, really good. Have I memorized all of that? God, I wish. I don't think you can memorize all of this. Um, but yeah, by the bare minimum, you want to know what all of these are. I'd say, just like the stages. Knowing what these stages are and knowing what each of them means is very, very good, and it'll help you just understand a lot of security garbage. Yeah, awesome, cool. I'm glad you guys like that. Glad it was beneficial for some people. Okay, let's go back to the slides. Cool. So Mitre's done. Nice. And we know what TTPs are. Let's talk a little bit about what threat hunting at Bell looks like, and if this is something that is interests you, I'll talk about what you can do later towards the end. I'm doing all these hand gestures, realizing that you guys can't see me anymore. Just kind of stupid. It'd be funny if like there was just a camera recording me. Anywho, threat hunting at Bell. So first thing I gotta say is I can't say too much here, because NDAs, all that other good stuff that exists out there. But I'll try to give you a nice overview of what threat hunting at Bell looks like. So first off, Bell being one of the biggest telecoms in Canada, if not the biggest, their SOC is huge. Okay, I was not aware of how big it was until I joined it. I say over 10 different teams, and that might seem like a small number, but it breaks down into a lot more than that. And the reason that is I don't know if many of you know, but Bell isn't just a telecom. They have major like stakes in other different things like Bell Media, the MLSE, a lot of other different sub organizations of Bell. And as such, the SOC is really, really big, and it monitors different things other than just telecom infrastructure, if that makes sense. So threat hunting is just one sub team under the events team. So the events team is one team out of these 10. There's more than 10, honestly. I just don't know the exact number, and even if I did, I couldn't tell you. Um, but it's just one team under a team called events, and there's about 8 of us now. There used to be like 14 till we got broken up and people started leaving. But there's about, I'd say, a solid 8 of us now. And so each team has probably each like sub team has like 10 to 15 people on average, and then there's probably like 3 or 4 teams under each, actual team. And so it's huge. There's a lot of moving parts, which kind of slows things down. But at the same time, it's really cool to see that that kind of if you want to work at a big company and work in a big SOC, trust me, Bell is definitely up there. And so yeah, everything I said before to you applies to what I do on a day to day. A lot of it was just theory that I've pulled off from different sources, and I'll share these slides with you at the end, and you can see the sources at the bottom. But yeah, they're just there's just a lot of information that I wish I could give you, but can't. And lastly, there are some other operations that we do on the threat hunting team, which make it a lot of fun and really cool. And those include things like content development. And when I say content development, I mean like rule building, building dashboards, any security related content we play a part in. Dashboard monitoring, quality assurance. And when I say quality assurance, I mean making sure that our rules or our detections are up to par, and they actually work. And then external project help, and this is the biggest thing that I wish I could give you more information, but I can't. But basically, there's a lot that goes on in the SOC, and there's a lot that goes on at Bell. And threat hunting being a very knowledgeable team about various different. They're not highly specialized in one thing. We help in a lot of things, and some examples that I can give you is a certain team might say, hey, we need this kind of detection, but we can't build it based on our normal seams. What can you guys do? And so someone like me who likes programming might say, you know what, I can build a script that does this pretty well. And so I'll build like an actual software or a piece of program that might be able to install on other people's workstations to do that thing that they asked to be done. Other things might be when we're looking to purchase a new product or something, they might involve threat hunting to be like, hey, is this product actually good? Um, and what that results in is you do a lot more than just threat hunting, and that makes it a lot of fun. Because rather than just doing normal threat hunting operations, which is fun in its own, you get to experience a bunch of different departments within a SOC, and I really like that. So Bell Threat Hunting would also monitor networks of Virgin Mobile. So basically, when I say, what our operations are, it's basically what we do at the threat hunting team is we monitor I don't know how to say this without saying too much. Um, I wouldn't say we necessarily monitor the networks of Virgin Mobile, because Virgin Mobile is its own other organization under Bell, so they probably have their own infrastructure and that kind of stuff. So um, my short answer to you is no. Yeah, I know that was like a terrible answer. I'm so sorry, but short answer is no. Cool. I would honestly give you guys more information if this wasn't being recorded and on YouTube, but because of that, I can't give out too much. And so it's even cooler. That's our threat hunting logo at Bell. We have our own little logo. That's it right there. I like it. It's cool. What kind of team do you know in an organization has their own logo? We do. Okay. Enough talk. Let's actually dive into the practical example of what threat hunting is. Okay. Yeah. So we're going to be talking about DLL hijacking. I actually lied. We're doing DLL search order hijacking. I told you that before, but that's a mouthful, and I didn't want to advertise it as DLL search order hijacking because that's just a lot to say and it seems overwhelming. DLL hijacking sounds a lot cooler. Okay, so to start, we need to figure out what our trigger is, right? So we talked about the 3 stages: trigger, investigation, resolution. What the hell is our trigger? Okay, our trigger is going to be this blog post that actually triggered my investigation into DLL hijacks. Okay, and I'll also give you the link here. Okay, so yeah, so this is a little blog post. So not a little blog post. It's actually quite lengthy and good, on automating DLL hijack discovery. Basically, what this next part of the workshop is going to be is we're going to dive into most of this, but we're not going to talk about the automating stuff. We're going to talk about it a little bit in theory, but I'd rather you guys take that as like a something for you guys to do on your own if that's something that you're interested in. But what you'll see is here a lot of these, triggers that we have are blog posts like this. They'll basically just dive into a bunch of information on the specific TTP that you're looking into, and sometimes they'll even give you a good guide as to how to execute them, and then also how to detect them. And this is like a best case scenario. But yeah, I'll leave this for you guys. I'm not gonna go into it because we're gonna go into it kind of step by step during the practical portion of the workshop. But it's there for you guys to look back at if you want. But this is kind of what I mean by a trigger. Someone in the team would see this, they'd be like, "Hey, this is really cool. Someone should do this." One of us picks it up and does it. And yeah, that's what threat hunting is. So, yeah, right. Okay. Yes, we're not doing that. Already talked about that. I already spoiled my little surprise for you, but yeah. Wait, Yusef, what are DLL hijacks, or what are DLLs even, right? That'd be my first question going into this. So you read this, it gives you a little bit of information on DLLs, but you don't know what they are. So my question to you guys before we dive into what DLLs are: does anyone know what DLLs are? Let's see. Dynamic something libraries, dynamic link libraries. Perfect. Okay, what the heck does that mean? Dynamic that? That's funny. What does that mean? Because when I first saw that, I was like, that means nothing to me. What does that actually mean? Pretty much. Just like switch the words around and it makes a little bit more sense. There are shared snippets of code, shared libraries that use between applications. Perfect. Yeah, you guys got it spot on. I'll dive into a little bit more details about it, but yeah, that's pretty much it. So DLL stands for Dynamic Link Library, as some of you said. Here's the Microsoft definition, which I will not read because honestly, it doesn't make any sense to me. Simply put, it's a library, right? We've all done programming before, I think, whether that be in Python, Java, C, C++, it doesn't matter. You have all imported libraries before, and think of library DLLs as libraries. That's it. Okay. They have a weird .dll extension, which kind of makes them confusing, but they are simply snippets of code, just like Kyle said, that you can import into other applications to use. The only difference is they are dynamically linked. So yeah, when programming, import libraries. Yeah, so DLLs, or just libraries in general, promote modularization of code, and what that means, just splitting your code apart so that other people can use those parts of the code specifically. Code reuse, efficient memory usage, and reduce disk space. Oh, too much words. So yeah, almost every single program you write or software you use in Windows will use DLLs. And I can bring that further and say any program you write in any language on any computer will use, or any operating system will use libraries, right? Yeah. Is there a particular language that you use, or is it dependent on what you do? I think DLLs, I could be wrong, but are only written in C++. I think. Someone correct me if I'm wrong, if they know. But I think that you can only write them in C++. Shared libraries, yeah. Yep, that's also true. Finco is there. Yeah, so. Haha! Someone's already on par to what we're doing. Yes, Reed, pretty much. But don't answer my next question because I'm gonna have like a question in like 3 seconds. Not 3 seconds. In the next slide about this. But yeah, spoiler alert. Okay, so before we start, have you guys ever gotten an error that looked like this when you're running any sort of application? Sometimes even when compiling code or something, basically a pop-up just comes up and it says this application can't run because some .dll file is missing. Has anyone ever got this? I don't know. I've gotten it a couple times here and there. Doesn't look like it. A couple times? Yes. Okay, cool. It's irrelevant to the actual, material here, but it'll give you a good idea of what it is we're going to be doing. Okay? Cool. So, right, before we dive into that, something that's really, really important about all of this is understanding the DLL search order. And so, yeah. Okay. So let's talk about this search order a little bit. Before I dive into the actual order, think about it like this. Anytime you open up an application, the application doesn't just automatically load up. It's got process, right? Um, let's just take a Python program, for example, because that's the language that I program in most. Once you run that program, it's going to see the import lines at the top of your page, and it's going to say, okay, I need to grab this library, I need to grab this library, I need to grab this library, and then I can go forward with the actual program. Now, how does it know where those libraries are? Well, with DLLs in Windows specifically, there's an actual order that it goes through to find those DLLs. And that order is as follows. So the first place that it'll look for a DLL is the directory from which the application is loaded. So let's say you are launching, in our case, Visual Studio Code. It'll go to the directory in which Visual Studio Code is, the actual application, not a shortcut, and it'll try to find that DLL in there. Now, if it doesn't find it there, it'll move on to looking at the system directory. And most computers, that's C Windows System 32. Okay. You can also get this on your own computer by running the get system directory function. Yeah. And then if it doesn't find it there, if the system is a 16-bit system, it'll look at the 16-bit system directory, which is the same thing as above, just without the 32. But some computers don't have this, so it just skips it. And then it'll look into the Windows directory, and that's a typo there. This should be just C Windows. And you can get this. Wow, lots of typos. You can get this by running the get Windows directory function. Yeah, so the Windows directory is just C Windows. And then it'll look in the current directory. So whatever directory you're currently in, when you're running the application, it'll look there. If it can't find it in any of these, it'll look there. And then finally, it'll look in the directories that are listed in the path environment variable. So if you've ever looked at your environment variables on your Windows, which you might have because you're running into problems running something in your command prompt, the path variable has a bunch of different paths in it, so it'll look in all those paths to see if that DLL exists. Now, this is the search order if safe DLL search mode is enabled. Now, if it's not enabled, which I don't think I've ever seen a case that it isn't enabled in, I don't see why you would want it to not be enabled. If it's not enabled, basically what ends up happening is number 5 goes into number 2 and everything gets pushed down a little bit. And can you guys see why that's not safe? Like why that jumps to the second spot? Basically because your current directory shouldn't ever be looked at. Doesn't really matter where you are in terms of running an application. Where you are shouldn't have anything to do with the application actually running. And exactly, it's easier to put malicious DLLs in the current directory. And so ideally, it wouldn't get to that point. It would find it in one of the first 4. But if DLL safe search is not, it'll actually look in the current directory as the second item. Awesome. Any questions on the search order and its significance? This is really, really important. Okay. Cool. If you have any questions later on about this, let me know. And this will all make sense a little bit more when I show you some stuff. That said, let me give you a little scenario to um, start off our investigation. So pretend you are writing your programming assignment for Mr. Sun's class. I know we have some people who aren't insured in here probably, but Mr. Sun is just this amazing professor that teaches programming at Sheridan, and I love him. And I think a lot of other people feel the same way. Just a great guy. So yeah, imagine you're writing a programming assignment for him. Okay, so you go to launch Visual Studio Code or whatever IDE you use. We'll use Visual Studio Code for this example. What is your Windows OS going to do? Okay. Basically, what it's going to do is it's going to find the VS Code application or exe. We'll call this, just for simplicity's sake, file A. File A is going to import file B and file C. These two are DLLs. They're located in VS Code's application directory. So this is VS Code's application directory. Users, username, app data, local, programs, Microsoft VS Code. And then the exe sits in this file, or this folder rather. File B imports file D and E, which again are both DLLs. This time they're located in C Windows System 32. Okay, hope you're following. And this process gets repeated a couple of more times, right? Because files usually import more files, and those files will import more files. So this probably repeats a couple more times until the application is fully loaded. Now, since I just gave you a brief explanation, which makes you all DLL experts now, what can we exploit in this situation? How can we use this structure within the OS to do something bad? Yeah, simply put, just replace the existing DLL with our own DLL. Since any user, that doesn't necessarily need to be an admin user, can go into that directory, the Microsoft VS Code directory, we can just either replace or um, add one. And you'll see what I mean. So, for example, in Windows, it's going to look for file D and file E in this directory first, right? Because if you go back to the search order, the first item in the list is the application directory. So it's going to look in file D. It's going to look for file D in Microsoft VS Code. It's not going to find it there. It'll find it here, which is like the third item. Okay. And so if we place a fake copy of file D, call it file D, place it inside of the VS Code directory, we can now get our own DLL to run. A lot of theory, but you'll see what I mean in a second. Okay. Investigation time. Okay. It is 8, almost 8. It's like 55. I need to grab a drink of water. I've been talking for a bit. So in the meantime, if you plan on following along with what it is I'm going to be doing, I've been talking and not pressing the button. Sorry. Um, what I said was, I don't know when I stopped holding the button. Um, but what I said is, I need a drink of water, so I'm going to go on a little 5-minute break, and you guys can too. But what I would ask is you launch your Windows VMs if you haven't already, if you plan on following along, and then also download Procmont on those VMs. It's going to help a lot with what we're going to be doing. Okay? First of all, is anyone planning on following along? Is anyone actually going to follow along? Like, carry out the attack and everything with me? It's fine if you're not. I'm just curious. That'll like just let me know what pace I should go at. If I can go a little bit quicker, or should I go slower? Cool. Well, you type those answers in. Also, if you have any questions, please feel free to pop them in. I'm gonna go grab a drink of water. I'll be back in like 30 seconds. Be right back. Okay. Cool. Let's get back into it then. Um, what? Where are we here? Bell text. Okay. Um, let's see. Fun post, future YouTube recording. Cool, awesome. Are you assigned a specific area to form with your own process via ticketing system, or do you start the day just looking for any possible start? Good question. Basically how we have it working at Bell is whoever has time to do what we call hunt, just does it. So if you have you have like a light week or something like that, there's like a whole list of hunt ideas that we have, and people just go out and pick them. Not really, no one requires you to do any hunting or requests any hunting. That barely ever happens. It's kind of just on our own time. And we have like these goals that we need to meet each like quarter or year. That's how it works out. Cool. Cool. Awesome. Okay, let's start with the fun stuff. Okay, so talked a lot about theory and stuff. Let's all see it in practice now. So we have our trigger, which is that blog post that I showed you guys. We know what DLLs are. We have the information to start, and we have a little tutorial that we can follow along with. Like I said, I'm not really going to follow along with it. I'm going to add and remove things as I see fit. But we will start by me closing everything, so I start fresh. Okay. So if you have your Windows VM launched, should look like Windows. You guys see or no? So Jem is actually paying attention. Oh no, I haven't shared my screen yet. What a goofball. What a goofball. Thanks, Jem. Guys, this guy's a rock, bro. Okay. Awesome. Let's get started. So, Windows, nice and easy. How we're gonna do this is two ways. Okay. I will kind of go through it step by step, and then I'm gonna give you guys the opportunity to kind of do it on your own, where I'll be kind of just here if anyone has any questions or if anyone is even trying to do it. So yeah. So to start, like I said before, we're going to be using Visual Studio Code, and we're going to launch a DLL Hijack with Visual Studio Code. Before I do that, I need to delete something so that it's okay. Cool. So right now, when you launch Visual Studio Code, it just launches like this, and nothing happens, right? But there's a lot of stuff happening in the background right now. And Procmon, which I just asked you guys to download, is something that basically monitors all these background processes or background activities. Hence the name Procmon, Process Monitor. So let's close VS Code and let's launch Procmon. Okay. Cool. And so once you launch Procmon, you would probably get something that looks similar to this. You probably have a bunch of other hits, but that's because yeah, there. This kind of, you'll get something that looks like this. And this is a lot, and it's really, really hard to get any information out of this. But basically, if I break it down, what we want to see is we want to see which DLLs is Visual Studio Code loading and which ones it can't find in that search order structure, right? So if I go back, I'm going to keep this slide over here because this is really where we're going to get a lot of information from. So it's, again, remember, the first place it's going to look for the DLLs is in the directory, the application of the directory. And so what we want to see is we want to see the ones that it can't find there. Okay, so it's going to search for the DLL in that place first. And the way we do that is by filtering out events. So without VS Code being launched, so again, if VS Code is launched, make sure you close it. What we're going to do is we're going to go into filter and then filter. And basically, we're going to filter out the things that we want to see. So first off, what we want is we want the process name. So the process name is going to be code.exe. Well, why is my caps lock on? Code.exe. So if you've just installed this in the past week, that should be the same as it is me for you. And so we want process name is code.exe. Then we want to include it. And so then we'll press add, and you'll see that it adds it here. Just quickly, it should have a bunch of other stuff. You know, these are just things that Procmon is filtering out by itself for it. So that it doesn't monitor its own self, if that makes sense, because that would give off a lot of information that we don't see. The next filter that we're going to add is we're looking for DLLs. So we're going to say path ends with .dll. Okay, so we're looking for the process or the file that ends with DLL. Yeah, and so we want to add that. So now we have, it's looking for the process that is code.exe, and it's looking for sub-processes or files or DLLs that it's looking for. Then it's looking for the DLLs that code.exe is launching. The last one is going to be the one that basically says the result is not found. Okay, so we're gonna say, where's result? Where's result? Result contains not found in all caps with a space in between. Also, is this too small or is this big enough? No one's complained yet, so I think it's big enough. It's a bit small? Okay, I'll try to see if I can increase my size right now. So, okay. Oh, shoot, cancel. Add. Okay, there's three things that we added. We added process name is code.exe, result contains not found, and path ends with DLL. Let me try increasing. No, not system information. What is settings called in Windows settings? Right. Okay, where's display? Display. Right, because this is a stupid thing. Sorry. I think because I'm on a VM in Azure, I can't scale it. That is quite infuriating. What if I increased my actual systems? You're right, that would have been so much easier. I mean, Lord, I'm an idiot. We've established that already, though. Okay. Let me see if that does anything. Well, that's way too freaking big. Too big. Yeah, no, that didn't do nothing. That made things infinitely worse for me. I mean, I actually did kind of make things bigger, but I have to like scroll through everything. Okay, maybe we'll actually keep it like this because I don't think that's that bad if it's scroll. Okay. No, that's pretty bad. I don't know what I'm doing. I'm gonna bring it back. Where was we? Here, I think. We're gonna make it even smaller. I think that made it smaller, didn't it? Ease of access display, change text. Let's try that. If I didn't break my screen, which I think I did. One up one. Sorry, you said ease of access. Where's that? Goes to a font size button. No, it's help from web. Go to that. Oh, well, that's okay. I will just continue on. And if there's something that you can't see, just let me know. And I'll try and pinpoint it better. Okay. That was system information. Okay, cool. Prop one. Okay. So yeah, where we left off, we have our filters placed, and so now we just press apply, and you should get nothing. And the goal of this now is to launch Visual Studio Code, and it should show us all the DLLs that Visual Studio Code is launching. Perfect. Okay, so I'll wait for VS Code to finish launching completely. Awesome, it's done. So we can stop that. So what you'll see here, and I hope that this isn't too small, but it is. I'll take a screenshot and give it to you guys as well, which will probably make things a little bit easier to see. There. That should hopefully help you see things a little bit better. There's a magnifying glass. Oh, find. No, that's find. That's okay. If you want to tell me how to use it, let me know. Okay, so what we will see here is basically all the DLLs that Visual Studio Code or VS Code is trying to find. Okay, and yeah, these are them right here. Okay, so what you'll notice is all of these are DLLs that exist, but because it's looking for them first in Microsoft VS Code, it's not finding them. So these are DLLs that are built into Windows, which means where do they exist? They exist in the system directory. If you have any DLLs that are not found in the system directory, that's going to cause a problem. That's going to cause that pop-up to come up where it's like, I can't find this DLL, so I can't launch the application. But thankfully, it found all of them except these managed with DLLs, which probably are benign and don't require anything, don't have any effect on VS Code as a whole, because we can see here that it launched fully and it works perfectly fine. But yeah, so yeah, so here we have a list of all the DLLs. So now these are a bunch of DLLs, and where do we know where to start? Basically, what you would do is you would load up, or you would try to do what we're about to do with a specific DLL with all of these to try and figure out which ones are actually exploitable. And the reason that is because some of the DLLs, the way an application should look for a DLL is by making sure that that DLL is the DLL that it wants to load. So it can do that in numerous ways, and I'll explain how in just a second. Well, I don't know how to use this. I don't like it. Do I get rid of it? No. What do I do? How do I stop magnifying application? This is me being a Windows non-smart person. He's probably like laughing at me. It's fine. Oh, I just go up. Isn't that crazy? That's kind of nifty. It's also really, really slow. I don't see any window that's small, to be honest. I'm just gonna end it. Don't want it. Better. Okay. And so the DLL, the specific DLL that we're actually going to be using to exploit is called WinStat. This one right here, WinStat. And so yeah, so basically this DLL, I've already tested it out and it works. And once we write our own DLL, we can plop it into this directory and it should launch. Now, for time's sake, I've already kind of taken this DLL off of someone's repo that I found and just changed it a little bit. But basically, what I'm doing in this DLL, and I'll just give you the DLL file for you to experiment with, is it's basically creating a message box that says hacker12345 and you have been hacked. Not really, because yeah, you would have been hacked time ago if we were able to do this. And then it's also creating a process. It's starting a process, which is the calculator. And the reason I'm doing this is because this is going to help us detect it later on. Can I zoom into the code? I probably can. Um, do, 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 do. Yeah, cool. So yeah, a lot of other garbage here that you guys don't really need to see or understand. But basically, yeah, just creating a message box that's gonna plop a message, and then it's also gonna create a process or start a process rather, and that's gonna be just the normal built-in calculator. And the reason I'm again doing this is because when we go to detect things, and usually as an attacker, what you want to do is you want to start a process when doing something like this, right? Whether that be starting a script that you have already on the system, whether that be, you know, modifying some process, you need to start the process to actually modify it. And when we want to go to detect that, we are going to basically correlate when we find VS Code launching and then the second application that launches after that. And you'll see what that looks like in just a second. So, so I assume that an attacker wouldn't download Procmine, so how would they go about doing vulnerable DLLs? Great question. So, as an attacker, what you would probably do is you would do this on your own separate machine in the background. Uh, and this is what's going to be a targeted attack. So basically, you are going to be targeting individuals who have this software installed. So let's say, for example, you work at Google and you're a developer at Google, right? 9 times out of 10, you're going to have VS Code downloaded, right? Like that's probably the most common IDE that people use because it's so lightweight and you know you can do so much with it. So that's probably something that you're going to target. So knowing that, you'll basically try and get access to, you know, some developer's machine, whether that be via phishing campaign or whatnot, and then you would do DLL hijack like this in order to establish persistence, evade detection, or launch any other script that you've wrote as an administrator. So privilege escalation. I'm going to talk about all these things after we're like done. But yeah, you wouldn't download this on your actual the victim system. You would basically already know that this application is susceptible to a DLL hijack, and as such, you would pick out that specific DLL that we already looked at and found, and target that. Yeah, hopefully that made sense. Cool, awesome. Nice. So I've already compiled this and I've already built it. What I'll do is I will give it to you guys. I didn't think of how I was going to do this until now. Sorry about that. Um, I don't think RDP lets me drag and drop. This is it. There. And let's in debug x64 hello world.dll. I definitely can't drag drop it. Let's see, what am I gonna do? I am going to log into Discord here and send it to you guys there. That sounds like a plan. Any questions in the meantime? Let's go edit that part out. I'm sorry, Nash. I'm all over the place. Okay. I don't know why I loaded that channel of all channels first. Like, how I Discord be a little smart. Okay. So yeah, there's the DLL. you probably want to drag that onto your Windows VM. Yeah, it's obviously going to say that. But I promise you, there's nothing wrong with this. This is literally all there is in this DLL. You can look at the size of it. It's minuscule. There's like nothing in it. But if you don't want to download it, I totally understand too. But this is all that's inside of it. It's not going to do anything. I'm not going to, you know, break into your systems or not. Except Gem. I made one specifically for Gem. So if Gem downloads it, then he's screwed. Okay. So yeah. So basically, what we want to do now is that we have the DLL downloaded. Okay, I have mine here. All we have to do, and this is super easy, is to put this into the Visual Studio Code directory and rename it as the DLL that we're targeting, right? So to do that, I will. What will I do? I will go to VS Code. I will say open file location, and then it'll bring me over here to the directory of VS Code. And you can see here that this is the application code.exe, and that's the same application that we have right here. And this path is the exact same path that we have up here. And so what I'll do is I will click, drag, plop it here. And obviously I can't keep it called as hello world.dll because VS Code doesn't look for a DLL or doesn't import a DLL that's called hello world.dll. What it does do is look for a DLL called Winsta DLL. So if all goes well, I should be able to rename this to Winsta, so all caps WINSTA.dll, and it's still there. Good. And hoping all goes well, I should be able to launch VS Code, and two things should happen. I should see a pop-up that says you've been hacked. Boom, I saw it. And then I should also see the calculator pop up eventually. Nice. Calculator pops up too. Multiple calculators are going to pop up because I don't know why. Yeah, so that worked. Just to make sure. Oh, where'd the you've been hacked pop up go? Oh, it disappeared. Maybe we'll relaunch it again. But yeah, it worked. You guys saw that little pop up. We can try it again. Maybe it'll do something different. Just a note. Usually it opens a bunch of Windows calculators tabs. I'm not sure why, but it does do that sometimes. Yeah, there's a little pop-up. I guess it closes immediately because of the way I wrote the program. It didn't used to do this before, and I swear I didn't change anything, but it's fine. Yeah, so we have successfully DLL hijacked VS Code. And you can see that VS Code still works perfectly fine. What's likely going to happen, though, is as I start using VS Code, something is going to fail because instead of importing the DLL that it was looking for or the library that it was looking for, it imported my library, which doesn't have all the functions and stuff that it's looking for. And so that might be a problem. And I'll talk about that in my final notes. But what can we do with this now, taking this a step further? So as a POC or a proof of concept, all I did was launch the calculator and put up a little pop-out, right? But if you think about it a little bit further, VS Code usually launches on startup, or by default, when you install it, it launches on startup. I guess it doesn't. But depending on how you install it or how you configure it, it might launch on startup. But what can you do with this, taking it further? So if I didn't just launch the calculator, how would I be able to make this be useful to me? What else can I make it do that might provide me as an attacker some benefit? Daily reverse shell, right? So if this is an application, let's just say I have Spotify for some reason downloaded on this VM. I swear I didn't download it, but whatever. Or Edge. This is something that's going to launch probably every single day, you know? And thus, I have a sure way, whenever this computer launches, I have a reverse shell that's being created. So unless someone finds this DLL, figures out that, hey, that's the problem, and deletes it, which is honestly not likely to happen if you got this far, you're looking like you're in a really good position. What else? So that is what we call persistence, right? Because we are building persistence. So if we go back to Mitre, this is a persistence technique. Now, can we think about a way of how this might be a privilege escalation technique as well? Anyone have any thoughts as to how this might be privilege escalation? Who aren't VS Code authority will run the DLL. Bingo. Right? So there's two ways that this is privilege escalation. If you are able to do this, and this becomes a little bit more complicated, to an application that requires administrator to run it, what you would be able to do is run whatever code you want as an admin, right? So when you write the code, you might not necessarily be an admin, and likely you're not. But if you are able to DLL hijack an application that usually runs as an administrator, there you have it. Your code is now being run as admin. Simply run something that gives you a problem. 100%. That's true. That is very, very true. If you're not a security expert. Okay. And then lastly, how is it defense evasion? You probably might not be able to give me an answer now, but we'll talk about it. Does anyone have any ideas how this might be defense evasion? Defense evasion. Think about the name of the program and what we named it. Kinda. Like that absolutely, yeah. Okay. So all valid answers. We could definitely get our DLL to delete evidence. I wouldn't say that that's the answer I was looking for. But yeah, it's hiding in plain sight and it looks legit. So you'll see in the logs right now, this looks like legit behavior. So unless you know something fishy's going on, eventually, um, unless we know that something fishy's going on here, this looks completely legit. Everything here looks legit. So unless we launch a process that says, you know, hacker123 exe or bad file 76 or whatever the case may be, all of this is going to look super legit. And that there is defense evasion. So unless you know what you're looking for, kind of like what we're doing right now. So we are exploiting the attack to see the logs it generates. We are not going to be able to know what this looks like unless you're like a crazy expert that knows what bad behavior always looks like. But yeah. So now something that everyone can follow along with is the hunting portion. We've successfully launched our attack. We've created a little POC that launches a calculator. Now, how are we going to actually hunt this and look for it in the logs? I'm going to give you all credentials to the Elastic stack that Kyle has so gracefully set up with the help of Kurt and Unforeseen Luai, I think. We are gonna hunt for this, hopefully together, if you want. Just gotta make sure that I don't give you guys the wrong credentials and then give you access to the entire Elastic stack as admins. That wouldn't be good, would it now? Okay. There you have it. Or not yet. There you have it. So the username is Bell Workshop. The second thing is the password. And then that is the link that you should go to access it. And so this is the portion of the workshop that will probably be helpful for all of you who are participating in the CTF because the Bell challenges and the Laris challenges are all on Elastic. And so they should be able, you might want to have some experience working with it. And I'm going to log in as the same user as you guys, so we make sure that everyone sees the same thing. Okie doke. Make sure that looks good. That looks good. Okay. But it doesn't look good. Why doesn't it look good? Oh, there's a space there. Now it looks good. Okay. I'm going to give you all a second to get there. If you want. Give you like 30 more seconds. Awesome. So now that we've seen what the attack portion of this, or launching the attack portion of this, looks like when you're looking for a hunt, what do logs look like? So usually they're going to be a lot more noisy than what you're about to see, but that's okay. So sorry, I just like totally moved steps and didn't explain what I'm doing. So this right here, when you get to this little page, this landing page, this is Elastic. This is Elastic SIEM or SIM. It's kind of like Splunk or any others. Those are the only two SIMs I'm like somewhat knowledgeable in. So yeah, this is Elastic. What you want to do is basically you want to click this hamburger menu and go to Discover. We'll talk about a couple more of these, but for now we'll just look at Discover. And what it is that we're discovering is we're discovering logs. So this only has the logs of one machine, which is that machine that I just ran the attack on. Okay. So usually in an organization, you'd have logs here from probably, hundreds, if not thousands of machines. So you can see how, in the past 15 minutes, this only generated 700 logs. But just imagine if that was multiplied by 2,000, 3,000, 4,000, whatever the case may be. It can get noisy really, really quickly. So what else do I want to say here? So over here, you'll see that there's this log star bell. Basically, this is what's called an index. And here, which of the three options did you click? I clicked Discover. Oh, sorry, you click the hamburger menu and you click Discover. You don't click any of those three options. Can you click any of those options? I wonder if one of them was Discover. No. Actually, you could probably click Analytics and then Discover from there. But yeah, easier way, hamburger menu, Discover. Okay. Yeah, so there's only one index here. And I think for the challenges, there's also going to be only one index. But basically, indexes are how you split up different log sources. So in Windows, I have, and I don't want to get too in-depth in this because it's going to take a long time. But I have the normal Windows logs that are being generated. And I also have sysmon logs that are being generated. And basically, sysmon just takes the Windows logs and makes them more useful. And I'll show you examples of that in a bit. And then here at the top is our search bar. And this is basically how we query the stack to get what we're looking for. Okay. Yeah, I think that's about the gist of everything I want to talk. The last thing is the time right here. We can change this to maybe the last 30 minutes, just to make sure that we catch everything that I did. 30. Okay. Okay. Cool. So 30 minutes, I got 1,200 hits. Okay. Or not hits, just logs. Okay. So where do you guys think we're gonna start? Where do y'all think we're gonna start? I should say. Does anyone have any ideas where you might think we want to look? Just take guesses. Just take guesses. I just want to see what you guys are thinking right now. Just shoot guesses at me. I would look at the fields available. That's a really good place to start. And then go from there. Awesome. Let's do that. Okay. So over here we have all these different fields. Okay. Let me just tell you what to ignore right off the bat. You can ignore anything that says agent dot, cloud dot, data stream dot as well. elastic agent dot. Yeah. Look at everything after that. Anything that says event dot, host dot. Yeah, actually, that's all I would look at. Host dot and event dot. Those are going to be your. Let me zoom in here because I can zoom in on this. Okay. So yeah, event dot and host dot. So do we see anything here that we want to? Why ignore Pablo? Because basically this is just me being lazy and not getting rid of these originally. This instance is a instance that is serviced by Elastic. Like Elastic made it, and it's like being hosted on Elastic servers. And so you end up getting with a bunch of these cloud information. Also, this might have something to do with the VM being on the cloud. My VM that I ran. So it's just information that isn't relevant to what we're looking for. Same thing with here. These are just, how much CPU did this log take? And irrelevant. Nothing juicy. The juicy stuff is, I'm telling you, an event and host dot. Event dot and host dot. So does anyone see any field here that might give off some good information? Just shoot out fields that seem like they have good information. Event.code. Okay. So what we can do when we see a field that we think is going to be, helpful to look at, what we can do is we can press this plus icon beside it. And basically what it's going to do now is it's going to show us all the event.codes. Okay. So not too valuable yet, but it'll be valuable later, I promise. Okay, so what do we say? Event.dataset. Okay, let's look at that. Event.dataset. Okay, what else? Host name. Okay, let's do host name. What else? Why do I feel like there's stuff missing here? Because when I looked at this before, there was more stuff here that is interesting. Oh, sorry. You can actually scroll down and look at process.2. There we go. This is where most of the juicy stuff actually is. Hint, hint. Yeah. Process dot, source dot, also good stuff. What else? Okay. So what do we have here? Event dot action, process ID. Let's do process ID. Where's process ID? Process PID. PID. I think that's what you mean. What else did we say? We said event action. Event to where's event action? Event action. Process working directory. Okay, let's pause here. Process working directory and see what information we have. Does any of this look like useful information to you guys based on what we have here? Do you think any of this can give us a good idea as to what's been happening on this machine? Sorta. Okay. Yeah, so absolutely. So this event.action field right now to me is the most valuable field. The reason you're seeing all these login failed is not because I'm failing my logins, because this is in the cloud and someone out there is trying to bombard me with logins. But good thing I have a strong password, so that shouldn't happen. It can be used for an point. Yeah, just so mind you, right now this information is being given to us from the latest to the oldest. So the latest thing that happened was a logon that was failed. So what we might want to do, okay, is scroll down, or even rather, change the, let me actually just, let me think here. How do I want to do this? I'm going to give you guys a hint as to what we're going to do. So this should help guide you in the right direction as to what we want to do next. So if I filter out for code, not code, event dot code one. I'm going to explain what this is in just a second. Basically, what this is it's going to list out all the process creates. So what that is all the processes that were started in the last 30 minutes. So I get 190 hits. Absolutely, Tazid, you're super right. Different fields will give us different value to give us more information. But I'm going to tell you right now, since we know what we're kind of looking for, we know that we're looking for behavior that has to do with, processes being started. We started VS Code. We also started the calculator as a result of VS Code being launched. So now what we can see here is we can see things that are happening, right? So event.code1 is a sysmon event that is process create. So on the side here, just so you guys see what I'm talking about, if I Google sysmon event IDs, this is a great link. Basically, this right here will break down all the events. There's about 25, and I'll break down each event. So right here, it'll tell me that this is event ID 1 is process creation, and it gives me a little breakdown of what it is and even some valuable fields. Okay? So the next thing, what do you guys think the next thing is that we want to look at? So based on the information that we have here, what other information do you think that would be helpful for us to get? Forget about the fields now. Just what information based on processes do you think would be beneficial for us to get? Or to get a better idea of what's happening? Any ideas? We could use keywords. Right, so we can actually search for things that we're looking for. For example, we can search for code, we can search for calc. That's actually a really good place to start. And I'm going to do that in a second, but before I do that, what I'm going to do is I'm going to actually expand one of these. And what that does is it shows me all the fields within this individual log. Okay? So again, ignore all the data stuff, elastic stuff. Let's go into event and see the kinds of values that these fields have. This is exactly how I go about hunting. So I'll look for, stuff that seems interesting. So, I see event action. I see that this is process create. Yeah, absolutely. I want to look at this as a whole within my table. But we already did that. So let's keep scrolling. I'll show you what else I think looks valuable. And you guys can feel free to give me some input. So we got message. We got process args. Okay. So the arguments that were given to a process, that seems like really good information to me to give me some more context. So what I can do is I can press this toggle column and table, and it'll put it in my table, that table view that we saw before. What else looks good? The command line, so the full command line of the process, that looks good. Okay, juicy information. What else looks good? Maybe the process name, that definitely looks like it'll give me good context. Don't really care about this. Okay, maybe the working directory. That might help. Let's go. Okay, so yeah, let's just look at what we have here now. So I'm going to take away some things that I don't think has value. The data set, I don't think has value. The PID, I don't think has value. Okay, cool. So now we're getting a better, we're getting a little bit more of a clearer picture. Okay, so we can see here at this time, the process Google update was run. get exe was run. What else was run here? We can see svc host, con host, runtime broker, cmd. Oh, now look what we're getting. Code.exe. Okay. So what do we think we can go from here now? Think about filtering this to what we want to look for. And this kind of goes back to what you said, Tazdeed. What we can do in our search is we can say exactly we want to look for code.exe. So I can do this in two ways. I can either say and what was the field name? It's process name, right? Process name, and then colon, and then in quotes I want to do code.exe. Okay, and so the reason this is doing this is because sometimes the parsing isn't great, and this is what I was worried about. But what I can do, and hopefully this will fix it a little bit more, is on code.exe here, I can press the plus button, and that'll try and filter for value. So hopefully that works. Oh yeah, it does. Perfect. So now we can see here that it filtered for it, and now I have a better idea of what's going on with regards to code.exe only. Okay, so what do we see here? So, process create, we can see code.exe, we can see the command line that how the process was started. Yeah, I mean, other than that, I don't see any other valuable information here. So what we can, yeah, okay, someone's typing. I want to see what someone's going to say before I speak. Yeah, yeah, that was definitely it. If I put code with a capital C, it probably would have worked 100%. Okay, so what I do now is I take one of these and I'd expand them just to see again, is there any different field now that I think would be valuable? So I think for event, we're okay. Message, process args, process count. Okay, let's look at this now, okay? So I have all these process parents, okay? And so this kind of seems juicy, right? Because think about it this way. We launched calc.exe from code.exe. So if we can see a log that kind of says that, we can get a really good indication that something weird happened here. So maybe I'll add parents command line and parents name. Okay. Now let's look back at our nice table. So here we can see that Explorer.exe launched code.exe, right? Because this is the parent. And then for the rest of these, all of them are code.exe, Explorer.exe, right? So this is probably when I downloaded, or actually, I have no idea what this is. Let's look at the command line. Maybe that'll give me a better indication. So parent command line. It doesn't really help. Why is Internet Explorer launching code.exe? That is interesting information. I don't know. It's probably got something to do with how Internet Explorer works. I don't know. That's weird. I'm not really sure why Explorer or Internet Explorer is launching VS Code. But regardless, maybe I got hacked. Yes, maybe. What can we do here now? Think about what other application do we want to look at? The plot definitely does thicken. Calc, right? So right now I'm only filtering for code.exe, but it would be nice to also see what's happening with calc. So let's do that. So in the search, we'll say and event, or no, process name. Process, whoa, come on, just find how to spell. Process dot name, and we'll search for calc.exe. Hopefully that works. It doesn't. process name calc.exe. Calc. Calculator. Interesting. Calculator.exe maybe. Let's try that. It's there somewhere. We just have to figure out how it looks. You have to filter for code. No, I have filter. Let's try. Let me try that. Process.name. So what I can do is in brackets, I can put in calculator.exe and code.exe. And that will look for both of them. Process name. Okay, maybe get rid of the okay, let's just try code.exe again by itself. Okay, code still works. Okay, this is what we're gonna do then. What we're gonna do is we're gonna look at this timestamp. So we see that code was launched at 2027. Okay, so let's try and see what happened around that time frame, rather than also filtering for event.code, rather than filtering just code.exe. Okay, so what was the time? 2027. So we'll get rid of process name, and we'll just look in that timestamp. Bruh. There we go. Okay, so these are all 2050, 2030. Okay, cool, nice. So we found them, right? Here's all the codes. Okay, found code. So it's calculator exe with a capital. Oh, but there's calc exe here. Interesting. Okay, so let's filter for this and filter. Oh, it doesn't like filtering for that. So like I said, sometimes there's parsing issues, and this is the one where this is an example of it, where when you search for something, it doesn't actually pop up, even when you filter for it exactly. So that's okay. We'll just continue looking at it here. But where'd it go? Oh, is it past the time range? I think it is now. Let's make it past the hour. Okay, so over here we can actually see in the time frame that I was actually doing the work, we can see a spike in the events versus when I'm not working, right? So this is already a really good indication that we see something fishy here. So I can take this and highlight this and just look in this time frame. Okay. So remember, the time is from the most recent to the least recent. So if I scroll down and try to find the first time I launched code.exe and see what happens after that, you can already see that weird stuff is happening. Okay, so over here, this looks like it might be the first time I ran code.exe because there's a bunch of other benign behavior here. Chrome, background task, probably me trying to mess with the, yeah. So background downloads, yeah. This looks like the first time we actually launched code when we tried to test it. And what do we see? Look, we see calc.exe being launched, and the parent is code.exe. So that right there is really suspicious. I mean, it's not the most suspicious thing in the world because there could be a valid reason that code.exe is launching calc or launching a calculator. You know, you could probably download a plugin that does that for you. But on its own, by default, code.exe being the parent of calc.exe is really weird. Can we agree that it's weird? Like, it seems like if you were just to just see this without knowing the background of it, that's like let me give maybe a better example. Think of the calculator launching Chrome. There's no reason that the calculator should be launching Chrome, right? So that right there is a good indicator that something suspicious happened. And so yeah, this right here is kind of where I wanted to leave it off at. Um, Finding this behavior and seeing about how we could go find this behavior. So we did a couple of things, right? We looked for processes that are being created by looking at event.code1. We looked for the specific process that we were working with, which was code.exe. And we also started looking at calc.exe, and we also looked in a specific time range. So those are four things that we did to help us find the kind of malicious behavior that is this log right here. So yeah, I would just keep in mind that all like the places that you start your hunts are usually always going to be where the regarding a process, um, because something always has to start the bad behavior. And if you can find that beginning point, you'll be off to a good place. That's it. Does anyone have any questions about what we did here? Anything else they want to see about this specifically? Is there any specific field you are confused about or want to get more information on? In the meantime, one thing that I want to emphasize for when you're doing your challenges that that require this kind of work. This document is going to be your best friend because it breaks down all of the um, sysmon events, which are really really good. They give really really good information. So it'll show you process change, file creation time, network connections, system on service changes. One thing that is also really helpful is image loaded. Um, what else is there? There's another one that I wanted to show you guys. Yes, file creation events. So how do you guys think we could have used this to detect our malicious behavior? 7, 3, 1, and 11. Yeah, exactly. If we see behavior that's creating DLLs, that's a good indicator that something bad's happening. I didn't enable logging for 11 because it gets really noisy, as you can imagine. Every single time you download something, you're gonna get like a bajillion hits on this. And usually organizations probably don't have this enabled because of how noisy you might get unless you filter out. But it would be a good thing to look at if it was enabled, and I should have enabled it. But for time's sake, I didn't. Okay, well, the last thing I want to give you guys is before wrap up is I also told you, if you were following along with me, to install Slack. And so what you could do as like an exercise now, if you wanted to, but I know it's a Friday night and everyone's probably sick of listening to my voice, um, is you could try to do the exact same thing that we just did, right? Making that DLL that I gave you launch in Slack. It might be a little bit hard. You might have to try a couple of different DLLs to get it to work. But it's you might get it. And if you need help, I'll be here to help. Um, that said, we have finished our investigation. We have talked about the resolution a little bit. And all that's left is a quick Q&A. If anyone has any questions, please feel free to ask. If not, I want to talk a little bit about jobs at Bell, and then I'll let you guys head out. Oh yes, jobs. Okay. What makes a thief could target for malicious code? Okay, great question, Ethan. I forgot to talk about this. So, um, this behavior can all be prevented by good coding, and what that means is, as a coder, when you import a library, so for example, when I'm importing a library in Python, I don't check that that library is what I'm looking for, if that makes sense. Um, I don't check that it has a specific function before I call that function. Um, and so what you can do in Windows specifically is you can check different things like the hash of a file. You can check that certain functions exist within that file before you load it. So, for example, the DLL that we loaded, the Winsta DLL, um, had no checking before it was loaded. So the programmer of VS Code didn't check that the Winsta.dll that it's loading is the actual verified one that was written by Windows. And you could do that by just like writing an if statement that if this function exists in this DLL, then use it, then import it. But if it doesn't, I don't want it because I know that it's bad. And so what that breaks down to is um, if there are DLLs that are being checked, they would qualify as a bad target. DLLs that aren't being checked are good targets. And the way you would just figure that out is by testing DLLs. If a certain DLL that you rename it to launches your calculator, you know that that's a good target. If it doesn't launch, that's a bad target because clearly there's some checking that's happening that isn't allowing that DLL to be loaded. Long-winded answer, I know, but I hope that that answered your question. Great question. Exactly, exactly. They would have to be doing all this blind testing on their computer, figure it out. And based on what I've given you, there's a really cool way to automate all of this, all of what we just did, if you continue reading the article that I gave you. But I'm not going to do that right now because I've spoken for a long time and I don't want to keep you guys any longer. Simply put, you would just write a script that automates the process of renaming a DLL to another DLL and putting it inside the thing and then launching that process. And if you can see that that process launches a second process that your DLL has, you know that it worked. I know that's not as simple as it sounds, but there's a much better description of it on the blog post if you care to read it. Awesome. Cool. So really quickly before I let you guys off, um, if you wanted to apply to any job at any co-op job or grad position at Bell, since there might be grads here, I'm gonna write up a little thing right now on what you can do right now. Basically, what you can do is you can write send your resume to Bell or soc-resumes at bell.ca, and I'm going to put this all in the message that I'm going to send in just a moment. And just basically say what kind of position you're looking for within the SOC. If you're looking for any position, great, specify that. Also, specify the length of your co-op, what year you're in, things that you're interested in, and that way the hiring team within the SOC can basically get together and say that this person's looking for this. What positions do we have around that right now? Um, the intern situation at Bell is really flux, and so I don't have any specific positions that are ready to apply for, but I do know that there are a couple of co-op positions and grad positions that are available, and they're hiring right now. So if you guys wanted to get a head start, I will post that information in this channel right now. And then a manager will be coming tomorrow during the company panel to talk a little bit more about what I just said, if you're interested. But yeah, that's basically it. I'll be here if anyone has any other questions or if anyone wants to talk about stuff some more. But other than that, I am all out of material and talking. So thank you all for coming. I hope you enjoyed that. I hope you learned a little bit. And I'll be posting all of this material by the end of the weekend on the workshop info channel for you guys to have.
So thank you, Yusuf.
Thank you, Nash.
No problem, no problem. Well,
All right, well, go
that
ahead,
wraps
Nash.
up. Yeah, I was just gonna say that wraps up the Bell workshop. I hope everybody enjoyed. So whoever's listening in right now, the CTF tomorrow starts at, well, we have everybody gathering around 10 o'clock. Eastern time, and the CTF, the keynote, sorry, the opening remarks will start at 10:30. So you basically have like half an hour from the time from 10 o'clock to sort of make your way in, get acclimated. Um, Tonight, what we'll be finished doing is the assignments to your individual groups in Discord. So tomorrow, if you don't see that you are in a group, um, double check what you sent me as your Discord display name. And if you don't, you see yourself, just DM me and let me know which group you're in so I can assign you. And yeah, that's basically all from me.